This is the CNC Router Tips Podcast, episode 62. Today's episode of the CNC Router Tips Podcast was recorded live on Facebook, which is a little bit of a departure from our normal, but we hope you enjoy it. This is the CNC Router Tips Podcast, a show which answers one question from you, the listener, about CNC router tables, CNC software, hardware, web hosting, and business. I'll help you get started in your CNC hobby or business and help you cut through the confusion.
Today's episode is sponsored by TheMakersGuide.com. The Maker's Guide. Useful tools for makers.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the CNC Router Tips Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Griggs, and I'm so glad you could listen in today. I just recently announced in the private Facebook group that I would be doing a podcast very quickly today episode because I have had some people asking me to do them live and to begin to record them. And so I figured I would give it a shot. And so here we are today. This would be episode number 62. Today's topic is, what I've been up to and what I think you should be up to as well. Recently, I was just reevaluating some stuff inside of the podcast to see, what direction that we'd be taking the CNC Router Tips podcast in, because we've been helping people get started in their CNC router businesses and to hobbies and getting their machines going and everything. And it's been kind of an interesting time. And I recently looked back at some of the things that I wrote back when I started this, because as many of you may or may not know, CNC Router Tips actually started as a blog before. Getting some thumbs up from some folks there. Say, hey, in the comments, if you would, that'd be great, so I know who you are and who's watching. You had a couple of people going. But it actually started, CNC Router Tips started as a blog. Hello, Flavio. Good to see you. And then it began to transition later on. We started this whole thing around 2011. And I was just going back through the website, looking at some of the things that I was trying to accomplish, when I first got started. And if you go to the CNCRouterTips.com page and you look at the About page, there's a little bit of my story there that will tell you some of the things that, I was up to when I first started this and some of the goals that I wanted to see. And I figured I would just really quickly read you some of the stuff that was at the bottom of that. Just the last paragraph in my story, it says, when he was talking about building my CNC router table, and I said, while all this was going on, I began blogging about my obsession with CNC machines and creating YouTube videos. I wanted to share what I was learning with anyone who was interested. I'm convinced that CNC routers can restart the cottage industry by giving people a chance to create custom-designed art and products which they can market globally. I want to share that opportunity with you. And then I asked myself the question, okay? Hey, Christopher, glad to see you on there. We talked earlier in the week. Nice to see you on this. So one of the things that I said was, why the CNC Router Tips blog? Why go through all this trouble? And I'm going to read you what it says. It says, in the CNC Router Tips blog, I hope to show you how I do things. I plan to pull back the curtain and show you all my hiccups as well as my successes. I'll show you how I do projects and also how much I actually make from each project. It says, if you're already doing business using a CNC router, I hope that by showing you both my successes and failures, it will encourage you to take action and to reach your goals. And I'll also show you how I'm doing business online. If you're not doing business online but thinking about it, you can see what it's like, see what's involved, and make decisions on your own without having to pay somebody or worry about what they say is false and is a waste of your money. So I'll start with $100 and a CNC router and see where it goes. You get a ringside seat, as every month I post my income reports. Okay, and that's what I wrote back when this blog venture first started, long before the podcast came out. The podcast has only been going for I think 4 or 5 years. I'm not really sure, but it was at the encouragement from the members inside of the hashtag CNC Router Tips Facebook group that I began podcasting, and I never really lived up to this hype, what I promised in that first about page, and I think that it's time that we re-examine that and look back at it, because that was part of the thing. If you get knowledge and experience in something and you don't share it with someone, it's a waste of your time and it's a waste of their time. And I think it's time that we kind of go back to that original idea and re-examine that and see what help it is that you need and everything. Now, as some of you know, I'm a big fan of Chris Guillebeau. In fact, I had him on the podcast in a previous episode, and you can go through the podcast links on CNCRT62.com, and you can scroll down and search through for his episode. But Chris Guillebeau wrote 2 books that I really like. One is called The $100 Startup, which is where I got the idea for the taking $100 and starting a CNC router business. And the second book was the one that he came on our show to talk about. I just happen to have that one close at hand. I don't have the other one, but that was the Side Hustle. And in that book, Chris talked in detail about people, what they had done, how they had done it, what resources they needed to get going in their business, and we had very good response. It's one of the better received episodes that we've done recently, and that was episode 52. So you could see that episode at CNCRouterTips.com/52 and check that out if that's something that you'd like to know more about. Now, so fast forward a little bit after doing that episode, I got to thinking about it and how I wanted to do something like what Chris was talking about, where I would get involved in a course and take people with me on the journey as we learned, some new skill or something that was new and interesting. And so, time passed, and I didn't have quite the right fit for anything. We tried to do something earlier on, but it didn't quite work out. But I recently, this past summer, I got with some friends and we started studying something, and it started to work out for us pretty good. Many of you may know that I have another podcast. And it's called the Podcast by Friday show. And, you can check that out at podcastbyfriday.com. That's where we have the episodes from that show. But I co-host that show with Kingsley Grant. And Kingsley is an amazing guy. He's a fascinating person to talk with. He's a trained licensed psychologist, and he does counseling for people and all sorts of things involving, well-being, self-worth, and, marriage counseling, many of those things. But, so it's really kind of cool to have a guy with that skill set available to you, because honestly, when you're thinking about doing something online as a business, you got to wonder if you're kind of crazy or something. But it's really nice. Kingsley, keeps me well grounded. But Kingsley and Kurt Hammond, who is one of the moderators here in the CNC Router Tips group, we all got together this summer and we began studying a book that had came out. I see a thumbs up. I wonder who that was from. But we got together and we started studying a book that I had recently seen that was really rocking my world and changing the way that I was thinking about my business. And that book had outlined the way that the author had taken his ideas and grown a business that's making nearly $1 billion right now. And that's not necessarily my goal for my business, but it was kind of interesting to see what he did and how simply he laid that out. And recently I got the chance to take a course from the author of that book, and I gotta tell you, it rocked my world. It was the most amazing, intense, information-filled course that I have ever taken. And I just finished it about a week ago, and I did an episode while I was in the process of the course on my other podcast by Friday, and it really started out as a conversation I was having with Kingsley, because we talked to each other at the beginning of each week, and then again on Friday of each week, and we talk about what we're up to, how we can improve, what things that we need to do, and what things we need to focus on. And as a result of the conversations I was having with Kingsley, I decided to hit the record button, and we turned that conversation into one of the best podcast episodes that we've ever done. If you want to check that out, you can do that, and it is at podcastbyfriday.com/52, episode 52. And I'll put notes down in the comments about where you can find that episode. But I really think that is an episode that everybody could benefit from, because it gives me my personal opinions on this course that I took, and as it's going on versus now a week later, after the fact. But what was cool about this course? It was a course that had to deal with how you set up your online business and how you get people to interact with your business, and the whole process of going about and how a sale is formed, and what is the thinking behind everything. It's really a fantastic course. And I know a lot of you guys who've got your CNC router, you're selling in craft fairs, you're selling in craft shows, you're selling to your neighbors, you're selling your things online for a lot of them. Some of you put them on Etsy, on Shopify, and all these different places. And it's kind of hit or miss. You don't know how your people are going to find you. Whether they're going to find you on Pinterest or through Facebook or paid ads or whatever. And it's always been a big jumble as to how you deal with this. And I got to say, this course that I took really put things into perspective, and it showed me a whole lot of different methods that people were using that I thought I understood, but it turns out I didn't. Now, I've been doing business online since the 90s. I've always had websites. As soon as I was able to get one, I don't know what drew me to them. I just was always an experimenter. I like to get in on new cool things, and so I had a website, and I got started in CNCs because I wanted to build model airplanes kits better and faster, and market those. And, I had to learn a lot of skills. I had to learn how to, build a website and put it up, get the web pages going, make sure the links were right, get set up with a payment plan, and a whole bunch of other skills that weren't my main talent, which was designing the model airplanes at the time. And I'm sure that you run into that when you look at this, because if you're trying to do things like this, it just gets crazy.
Today's episode is sponsored by The Maker's Guide, creator of the Triple Edge Finder. Get the edge you need, save time and frustration on your CNC project, and make setup a snap. Save time and material. Set up your workpiece on your CNC router table faster than ever. Accurately set your Z-axis height first time, every time. Automatically locate the corner or edge of a workpiece. Reset your starting point in the middle of a program. Quality crafted right here in the USA on US-made CNC machines. Get the edge you need today. Go to www.themakersguide.com/edge. The Maker's Guide. Useful tools for makers.
And I'm sure that you run into that when you look at this, because if you're trying to do things like this, it just gets crazy. So fast forward, I took this course, and it was called the One Funnel Away Challenge, and it's from ClickFunnels. And they asked 30 millionaires who'd made over $1 million in each of their websites what they would do if they'd lost everything, and all they had was an account, a ClickFunnels account, and internet access. And what would they do to rebuild it, and how would they get back on their feet after that? And that's what this course was about. So I expected, when I signed up for it, that it would be just a bunch of these guys telling their story and narrowing down on it. But that's not what it turned out to be. It actually turned out to be the philosophy that they used, followed by the techniques that they used, followed by the actual website templates, filled out the way they used them. And, in each step of the way, they showed you everything. I mean, I get a training sheet there, and I would go in, and, we'd start doing one specific section of it, and over the weeks of the course, they took us down through each portion of it. And so at the end of this thing, you end up with a completed design for your website, your products that you would offer, and everything. It was all lined up. And if you did the work, at the end of it, you could launch, your own website. Now, I'm going to be perfectly clear with you. I did not finish everything in that course in the 30 days, because I got bogged down a little bit in the middle with some things. I went back to school in the middle of that, and ended up not having quite as much time as I thought, because it takes about an hour to 2 hours a day during the course of this thing to end up with a functioning funnel at the end. But in the couple of days since then, I'm almost complete and ready to put my my new design for CNC router tips back up. So I'm really excited about that. So guys that I went through this course with, there's one guy, Doug Boughton. I think he has generated somewhere in the $12,000 range since he got done with this, and he just launched his funnel about 2 weeks ago, and he's just going gangbusters. This is an actual guy who lives in Connecticut, just down the road. I've talked with him on the phone, seen his stats, the whole 9 yards. For me, so far I've generated about $600 with it, and my funnel's not up yet. So, me. If you've listened to this podcast at all, I don't generally get on and talk about something that I haven't done, or something that I haven't tried, because I believe it's important that you know about these things. And the reason I'm telling you about this adventure that I'm on at all is because they're offering this course again, and I'm about to take it again, this time with my co-host Kingsley Grant, because Kingsley didn't take it the first time, but he says he's going through it, and I'm going to go through it with him. And so if this sounds like something that, I haven't really told you a whole lot about the details of the course or what's involved, but if it's something that you're looking into trying to move forward in your business and you want to get started with a website, this is probably the way to do it. I mean, this course cost $100 for me to take, and I've got to say, this is literally the best $100 I've ever invested in anything or spent on any training of any kind. I've been raving about this thing. I mean, I've got probably like 3 notebooks of notes that I took during the course of this thing. Laying out the logic behind what it was that I was going to be launching and everything. And I got this big bulky notebook full of notes that I took with each step of the way as I was designing this. And yeah, you probably don't have to get quite as nuts over it as I am. But I gotta say, it's been an awesome training. If you'd like to join Kingsley and I in this, and maybe you've got a chance to do this, you could go to cncroutertips.com/OFA challenge, and there's a video there. It'll talk to you about it, and you'll see what it's all about. If you'd like to train with us, then this is the way to do it, and I think you'd enjoy it. I know I would. I would love to see more of you do it, and we've got a few people already who are going to be taking this challenge with us again. So if this sounds like something that you're at all interested in, hit me up with a private message or go to cncroutertips.com/OFA challenge and take the challenge with us. And I know that it's going to make a change in what you're doing and how you're doing it, and I can't say anything better than that. So if that's something you'd like to do, again, the link, which I'll put also in the comments, is cncroutertips.com/OFA challenge. Now, it's only fair that I let you know that I am an affiliate with ClickFunnels. The One Funnel Away challenge is an affiliate link, and if you choose to participate in it, I will receive a small commission. Doesn't cost you any extra. It's just a way to defray some of the cost of hosting a podcast. And I have affiliate relationships with many companies, each of which I use and enjoy and can recommend. As usual, don't buy any product that you don't need. Only get something. I only want you to get something that you think that will be helpful to you to achieve your goals and moving you forward. Okay. Now, moving on. One of the things that I have also been working on with my CNC is doing some work for others. I have been doing some 3D designing for other people, and as a result of that, I was able to land 3 jobs in 3 days, which was kind of interesting. I never really gave it much thought before, but I began to do that as a quick way of generating, just some side income. And that is something that pretty much anybody who gets familiar with programs like VCarve Pro or Aspire, you can do that for others. I mean, there's a lot of guys who are always on the show asking, who's designing, who can I get to design a badge, or who can I get to design, a wildlife scene or 3D or whatever. And there are a lot of people out there. And so I started doing this, and, it's very fast work and, detailed oriented work, and I like it. So, that's kind of kind of a new thing for me because I usually design my own products and make my own things. But, there are times when, you just want to do something different. And so, I'm all for that. So, think about that. If the challenge isn't something that you're interested in, maybe one of your, you can put one of your skills to work to as another way of generating money with your cutter. I met some really great folks through this. One fellow became a member of the group after. Another fellow was already a member of the group, and we got to spend some time on the phone together as we're working out designs and things, and it was really very nice, and I enjoyed that. And another guy came from another job site, freelancer.com, and you enter your information into the web page, and jobs come up and you can bid on them, or you can post the type of work that you do and somebody will seek you out. And that's what's been happening in my case. So I don't know, it's just one more way to get down. So one of the things that I said in that About page was about showing you the income reports, and I will show you, what I spent on taking that course and how much I've generated since taking that course, in addition to the work that I'm doing as a freelancer. And I'm going to be posting that on the CNC Router Tips website for you to check out. So, I can't wait for you to see the new look of this website. It's been really cool, kind of working on it and getting it in a more usable form for everybody. So I really hope you enjoy that. If you have any questions for me, please ask them now inside of the chat group. I would hope that I can answer them for you. What are you working on currently? That's always interesting to us and everything. So just go ahead, write a comment inside of the chat field, and I will try and answer it, and then we'll end this episode. So far, we've had Christopher Palms show up. Tony Kane's here in the house. We've got a few others. Let's see here. We got one more. Okay. There's Kurt coming through. All pretty cool. Thank you, guys. So I'm not going to sit here and wait for questions, but if you want to check out any of the resources that I mentioned in this episode, we'll go through them and I'll put them in the comments below. The first one is for the One Funnel Away Challenge, which is you can find information on that at CNCRoutertips.com/OFA challenge. And the other one is the Podcast by Friday episode 52, which you can find at podcastbyfriday.com/52. And those are the two things that we mentioned in the show today. I want to thank you all for catching this live version of the CNC Router Tips podcast, and I appreciate each and every one of you. And I know this is a little bit different from what I normally do, but I only talk about things that I'm excited about and things that are working for me. So if this is something that you would love to do, and you want to come along for the ride, I'd be glad to have you, and I'd be glad to help you. I will do everything in my power to help make you successful at your efforts. Once again, I'm Bill Griggs, and this is the CNC Router Tips podcast. Thank you, and have a great day, guys. Thanks for the thumbs up. I appreciate them. I often mention many different types of software during the episodes, and hardware and cutters, and it can get a little confusing. So what I did was I put together a page on my website, cncroutertips.com/resources. And on that page, I list all sorts of resources there, from books to tools to software all the things that I use that make my CNC experience better and easier. And I hope you'll check it out. So again, it's cncroutertips.com/resources. Now, if you'd like to have your question featured on the air, here's how. Need help? Ask me about your CNC router question on my podcast, the CNC Router Tips Podcast. I'll be glad to help or try and get you the help you need. I want this podcast to be a fun and personal experience for everyone and helpful. So let's keep it real and ask sensible questions. Please use common sense and show courtesy to everyone. That way everybody wins. Here are some guidelines to ensure that your question is qualified to be featured on the show. Please keep your questions under 1 minute in length. If it goes a little over that, that's fine, but don't ramble. If you have a website and URL, you're allowed to share it, but only once during the recording. Spammy or disrespectful or deeply private questions will not be considered for the podcast. If you need to ask more than one question, just make each question a separate voicemail. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. I'm your host, Bill Griggs, and I really hope that you have a great day.